Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome. It's Thursday, May 1st. April's over. It's a new day. It's ahead of the market open. Let's look at it. Let's look at some GameStop. Let's take a look at that chart. Let's look at the option flow. So I know it was kind of like a little boring. I know a lot of people thought yesterday, not really much going on. Put premium was kind of flat throughout the day. Close the end of the session, last couple hours into the close, a little bit of movement there into the net call premium. We'll take a look at that as it finished over about 1.3 mil. It's been light the last few days with GameStop, so we'll take a look at some of the biggest impact to the option chain yesterday. Looked like some of the 30 calls for October coming off the table, some 23s for this week, those 37s, which we had talked about the other day as well for January, and some 28s for June. So let's take a look at some of these here. We'll pull that up and get you some data as we take a look at it here. So I saw this morning uh, video. We're about an hour ahead of the market open. I saw a 27.99 high there this morning. So nearing that $28 level is kind of like, the gamble we talked about that exists at the 27, 28, 29, and $30 level. As GameStop continue to move up, more of those calls would become in the money, can create some additional upside pressure on the stock. And the opposite, if some of those calls start coming off the table and puts increasing, some of that downside pressure can increase on the stock, which bring the stock down as market makers hedge, in relationship to gamma and the spot gamma. And we've discussed that on these videos before. So we'll take a look at some of the highest volume that went down yesterday. Let's try to piece something together here, see if we can find any type of narrative or anything like that. Let's see what some of these traders were doing here. Let's look at those 30s for this week. I would assume a lot of those were sold. We'll take a look at it here. See, it was like 13,000 volume yesterday. It was a little over 100,000 premium. We try to look at things for about 500,000 premium or higher, especially on GameStop. A little bit of change to the open interest, about 1,000 increase. So there was some buying and selling yesterday. Might a little bit more than on the ask side than the bid, but not much carried over into open interest. More than likely, contracts changing hands ahead of expiry tomorrow. So let's take a look here also at the 28s for this week because those were just slightly right there out of the money. There's about 300,000 in premium yesterday. Again, a significant amount of volume, 10,000 contracts, about 10,100 traded, but we only seen open interest increase about 945. And it could have been this final transaction. It could have been any of these transactions, but it might have been this final. A lot of people like to buy into the close just as a way to not disturb the price or alert others and then see what happens the next day. So a little bit of change in open interest. Again, about 300,000 in premium. But you see here, ask, bid, kind of split again between buyers and sellers. More than likely, somebody buying down here at 20, sold a bunch at 35. Might have bought them again at 23, sold them again into the close at 42. So a nice intraday move. It's GameStop. It's got some volatility, and people like to make money, so that's what's going to happen. I think these 35s that I saw yesterday, I know some people were getting excited for May 16th. Yes, there was some volume, about 250,000 in premium. Now 8,200 volume, about 6,000 showed up in new open interest. But let's look at that because I believe it was filled at the mid, more or less probably a cross trade, and it was in that regard. So we've talked about the cross trade before, but that's when a broker executes matched buy and sell orders for the same security but across different client accounts and then reports them on exchange. So, for example, could have been a ton of people with these 35s, and then a market maker essentially ran the trade all as one and then reported it to an exchange. So typically I'll filter out the cross trades, but it is something that came up because it was about 175,000 in premium. So filled at the mid doesn't suggest, ask. There's no side essentially. Now, if we look at the price here, the price was 29 that they filled at, and at the time it was 27.29. So you could assume possibly, some of those were filled at the ask, but again, there was no side. So the open interest did increase. Now, does that mean traders are thinking that it's going to go to 35 within the next couple of weeks? Not necessarily. They could be playing the volatility as it's 91%. So a lot of different scenarios in that regard, whether they're selling covered calls, buying calls. Let's look at these 27s for this week. Again, short dated. You got to be very careful with that. The IV yesterday was on 53%, and those did close. The 27s did close in the money. They did see a low yesterday, I think around like 50, and closed right around 100. So they doubled in the same day. Not bad on a short dated for in the money, and then the volatility being a little lower there. So not too shabby in that regard for those that traded it. Let's take a look here. What else we saw? Those 30s from May 16th. Again, 330,000 in premium yesterday. About 5,000 volume, but only a little 105 in plus 105 increase to the open interest right here. So not a whole lot there. Some traders might be betting on GameStop to be 30 or higher by May 16th. Some are betting for GameStop to be below 30 by May 16th in an attempt to collect option premium. So a lot of different ways the stock could be traded. Also, those 2750s for this week, same scenario, about 5,000 volume. About 1,000 of that showed up today. 220 premium. I know it was alerted shortly into the close for more volume than open interest, but those were filling around $30 in the morning and saw a high 65. So they did double again. You have to be very cautious on, even if they are in the money, just short dated contracts, especially as you get closer to expiry. The theta gang starts winning and you lose money, and that's just how it goes. So, seeing some more of those 125 calls being sold. If you didn't think GameStop would close above 125 by June 20th, you could sell those calls. They're playing $16 a contract. So if you didn't think GameStop was going to close above 125, you could sell those calls, collect $16 a contract. Now, say for example, GameStop did close above 125 on June 20th, you would be paid out however many contracts you sold at $125 a share. So I don't think you would mind. So that's why a lot of people sell those super I mean, those are 350% out of the money. It's probably been, I know it's been a safe bet because for those that were selling them back in February, I remember them selling them for $80. So even if you didn't want to run them until expire and you bought them back, you went from 80 to 15, so you made $65 a contract. So there's been a lot of selling on those. Sure, there's people buying these contracts, bought to open, but like I said, a lot of people selling. I mean, back in December, these were almost $300 a piece. So when they were selling all of those, I tried to tell everyone, hey, they're selling these, they're not buying them. And people didn't want to believe it. Well, if you were selling some of them at 300, they're only worth $15 right now. You'd have made $285 a contract with a pretty risk-free trade in that regard. So yes, always be open to looking at both sides of the trade. But there's your highest volume that was there yesterday, and we'll take a look at how some of that money was spent yesterday in regards to the option premium. But yesterday, though, was actually a nice, impressive, positive day. So we haven't seen a positive day on net premium for GameStop in a few days. Again, the option volume been very light. Trading volume has been light as well, and the stock's been consolidating. To be honest with you, that's kind of healthy. Oops, I backed up too far here. So we'll look at some of that consolidation as well, and we'll pull up some of that gamma, and we'll take a look at those the top chains, the top basically where was the bulk of that money spent yesterday on GameStop on the option flow. Let's pull that up here, which makes it real easy with the unusual whales. Also, side note, I don't know if anyone saw this right before the close yesterday. Someone loaded short dated out of the money Microsoft calls. They bought about 3,200 of them for about $1.1 million, right? It was for 417.50 calls that expire in 2 weeks, and Microsoft closed at 395. Trader may be betting on earnings. I wouldn't think they had some inside info, but they could have. And it was 422 yesterday in the after hours session, and into overnight it had kind of gone up a little bit more. And as of the time of the video, Microsoft's at 429. So this trader is going to certainly almost 4x their money. They're going to put a mil in and probably make about 3 mil. And we caught that with unusual whales because what was alarming was the open interest was only 120 at the time. Boom, here comes this monster candle right at the close. It was quick, somebody got it in quick, didn't want to alert somebody, and those calls are going to be in the money. Like if I pull them up on, say, Robinhood right now, let's see, the stock is, let's double check the price here. So the call's in the money, just take what the stock is minus the strike price, and that'll give you roughly the contract value. Except because these expire in 2 weeks, there's a little bit of theta, so you got to factor that in. But the simulated contract's about $1,800 a contract, and they closed at 300. Trader paid about 350. So it absolutely banked on that Microsoft trade. So I thought that was worth mentioning because that was pretty wild. But if you go over to GameStop, like we talked about, look at that. That's that gap up from earnings. A lot of people are like, I wish it was above 30. I mean, look where it was at last year. We talked about this many times, and we're going to look at a couple different things. But This is where the stock was last year. Yeah, before Kitty, I know all that. But look before Warren Kitty. This time last year, May 1st, roughly right here. Stock at a high of 1132. It's 2781. I don't see any reason to be upset about that. The only reason that you're upset is you bought too high and you wrote it down and you're down. You bought calls at the top, weeklies, out of the money, and you got smoked. We've talked about not doing that. You sold puts and got blown out on your position. It happens to everybody. So, yeah, I mean, the stock has been consolidating. Look at your moving averages in the top left corner. We're on the daily chart here, just slow trickling volume, consolidating in that earnings gap up. And the stock's been here at these prices before. It's not like it's unfamiliar, uncharted territory, but just nice consolidation on low volume, low option volume, letting this 9 EMA act as support, which is a shorter day. Now, if you go to a longer time frame, like the 21-day EMA, 26.24, and then GameStop low yesterday 26.80. So get it, under 27, kind of gets bought back up, trading well above your 200 SMA, which is 24.97, and the 50 SMA, which is 24.83. So definitely looks like that 50 might be getting ready to cross back over the 200. Not bad, but I want to pull up the weekly because albeit these are lagging indicators, they come after the data. Let's look at that weekly MACD though, because when we get on a longer time frame, I feel like it's a little bit more important. So I'm on the weekly for GameStop here. We're getting close. So let's see here. Signal 31 and then 33.7. So yeah, I mean it's literally getting ready to cross there. It doesn't mean anything, but look at the moving averages for the stock, well above its EMA on the weekly. Just treading water, nicely there. So let me just blow this up so it makes it a little bit easier for you to see. There's your moving averages all kind of coming together here on a weekly, which is cool to see on a longer time frame. Really posts some weight to that consolidation theory, especially on a longer time frame. And then we look at that MACD crossing and just want to see what's going to happen here. So you see where the stock's been before. Look at your moving averages over there to your top left corner. Keep those in mind and keep previous price, as a point of reference. A lot of people like in March when the stock went down to 20, they were like, hey, it's going down to 10. That didn't happen. That was an opportunity to buy. So and the last time the weekly MACD crossed up, let's see, was November. So it was right into the week of election. See, was below its EMAs down here. A little bit of move there, and then here came the weekly MACD cross, which went up to higher highs in January, like 34.40. So it came back down, and now setting back up again. So last time the weekly was around this time last year as well. April 29th, it had crossed about the same week. And then, yeah, there was some acceleration with Kitty there. But, yeah, from the weekly, the chart looks good. Doesn't mean it won't go back down or doesn't mean it won't go up, but it looks solid. It looks great compared to where it was at a year ago. So let's pull back up that option flow here real quick. Take a look at the top money spent yesterday. It was those 30s for October. And I believe some of that was coming off the table as well yesterday. Let's see here. Yeah, I saw those in the morning. It looked like maybe 1,200 volume, over 600,000 in premium yesterday. But the last couple of days have seen some sell side and then a decrease in open interest. So I assume possibly because GameStop's moved back up, traders could just be repositioning, taking some of their money, selling these, buying them back, whichever the story may be. But there was a decrease in the open interest yesterday. So let's see, 350 in that one. About 850, so about what was sold, almost roughly what was decreased. So, a trader could just be taking their money in that regard. So over the last 14 days, that contract has been about 450, 500. So it's slightly out of the money, but they have some time. And then those 20s for June, let's take a look at those because I know that was in the mid. Let's see. Yesterday. Yeah, I see somebody I believe sold those and just got a good fill on those, or they were closed out and or exercised. Open interest did decrease, even though there was the 500,000 premium. The open interest decreased on those as well, but those are in the money calls. So then the 30s for June we talked about. The 27s for this week. See, I mean, not a lot in regards to the option premium, but it was up in that regard. Let's take a look at those 27 puts, because I know somebody was loading the 27 puts from May 9th. They loaded them, I believe, Monday. I loaded them on the 29th. We saw it come over in open interest yesterday, which it did, and then yesterday a little bit more volume and a little bit of change in OI. So that trader's still there in those 27 puts for next week. Could be a hedge, so always keep that in mind. You never know exactly the trader's intention unless you are that trader. We just try to take the data and formulate a hypothesis out of it. Those 32s for June, let's take a look at those. I think there was a little bit of activity in that yesterday, about 80,000 of premium. Yes, there was some volume into the close, a little bit carried over into open interest. Those are just about 15% out of the money calls for June. Somebody could be betting on some upside, or maybe just betting on a spike in volatility in that regard. But here's your premium sorted here. So your top by premium sorted. So you can look. There's your strike. There's your expiry. Here's your volume. So you're welcome to pause or take a screenshot there. Like I didn't see anything too noticeable that jumped out. Some in the money calls, those always jump out. I like seeing in the monies. It's like it's exciting. People might want shares. Puts a little pressure on the market maker. But let's pop over to that gamma here. We'll take a look at it again as we get you going on your Thursday, May 1st, the first of the month. Let's see here. Dun, 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 dun. Pull up that spot game on today. See a little bit higher, 3.2 million shares to the long side. So about every 1% change in price, about $25 million worth of hedging, essentially. So for those that haven't caught up on Spot Game or haven't watched the videos before, basically where we're at here, the highest level of Spot Game open interest at 28. We talked about that. So as the stock moved closer, more of the calls go in the money. Kind of creates that pressure where market makers have to continuously hedge against the stock by buying the underlying in this case because they're long. If it was the opposite, they'd be selling the stock and because they were short, and then essentially have some downside pressure. But like we've talked about, I mean, with the same thing last year as GameStop moved up, more of those calls go in the money. It just kind of creates that pressure. For those that aren't familiar with spot gamma exposure, why don't you pause here and get you a screenshot? That way you can go back and read over this. Just basically means it's the assumed dollar value of gamma exposure. Market makers need to hedge for 1% change. So positive value, long gamma, negative value, short gamma. We've talked about this before. So as GameStop moves up, more calls in the money, gets a little more dicey, gets a little more expensive, it gets a little more spicy. And you've seen that action last year. You saw it with GameStop. You've seen it in previous years as well. So let's pull up some of the. Let's see here. Pull up that delta here, and the gamma as well. We'll take a look at that. Because like I said, it still is building out. I just wanted to check that put gamma was that one particular trader that bought the 27s increased the put gamma. But that net gamma still exists, at 28, 29. So if GameStop, moves up to 28, 29 or even to 30, all those calls go in the money, that could get a little exciting. So be cautious, be very careful for that. With the gamma ramp kind of built here for this week, but it's building into May and June, and it has been. We've talked about that for the last few months, but each week it's getting a little bit larger with that net gamma. And now we're into May, so we got the May OPEX, which is your monthly option expiry on May 16th, and then the June option expiry monthly on June 20th. So it is building just like we kind of talked about. We foreshadowed this in March that as we got closer, you would see the net gamma probably start building in that regard. As traders were getting a little excited. I mean, for example, if GameStop had bought Bitcoin at 76,000, it's 96,000. So they have $20,000 up a coin if they did. So when you look at that delta again, it's 20 and 25 is strong net delta, but 27, 28, 29, and then 30. Those are your levels. Thing moves up above, you're just going to induce more FOMO buying, more call buying, more pressure on the upside. Same as if you see a bunch of people selling calls or selling shares. If it moves over 28, you might see downside pressure. And that's why I always say you got to go back to that chart. Come back to your chart. Look at your price levels. Look where you've been before. Look at your moving averages. Stocks. The price has memory. It knows where it wants to go. It knows where it's been. And it's all controlled by Wall Street computers. At the end of the day, it's supply and demand. It's volume. It's option flow. So it's what you want to watch for. For those that were trading like GameStop based on just like MACD crosses, that MACD crossed for the daily. That was back when GameStop hit a low of 2078, and then the next day, 25. for the high, but still a low of 22.41. So if you did just a strategy of MACD cross, I mean, it got you in the stock at a pretty good price. So not too bad in that regard. But let's look at the open interest changes this morning real quick as we finish up here. So we get the most accurate data for you. Let those little updates go through. I just always appreciate unusual whales. All that real time data always takes a second to come through and reshuffle and reorganize. And so we'll look at the biggest increases to open interest. It was the 35s from May 16th. Like I said, a cross trade. The 125 saw some more, like we talked about, that open interest. Not a lot of big changes there. I remember last year we were looking at massive 20, 30, 40,000 changes, increases, 15,000 increase. So not a lot of big increases there, and not also conversely, not a lot of big decreases as well in the open interest. I'll pull that up, let you take a look at. More or less, some of this money just coming off the table. So it wasn't too much in that regard. So what we're going to look for here on the stock, we're going to see these previous levels. 27.94 yesterday, 27.93, 28 and a quarter, 27.94. So we saw GameStop saw, I believe, 27.99 in pre-market. Yeah, that was the high. So these are your high numbers here. And then right around there, 28.38. Anything above that definitely is going to get exciting. Any retracement, look to your moving average. Yesterday, we're looking to see if that would hold that 21-day EMA, and then there's your lower time frame. So I mean, you know where it's been, and don't be alarmed when stocks move up, stocks move down. I mean, Warren Buffett said it best: you own a stock, be prepared for the thing to draw down 50%. And what you gonna do in that situation? You hedge against it, you buy more. That's all up to you and your investment objectives. So, not too bad though. Overall, looking at the market, I think it's S&P is up a point this morning at time of filming. So market's up a little bit. We got Microsoft up. We got Amazon up. What were the other big ones I saw this morning moving? Meta's up almost 7 points. So that's strong. I like seeing Microsoft about 9 points. Meta up 9. Pardon me. Meta up 7. Microsoft almost up 9 points, which is pretty exciting. GM's up about 4% this morning. It's like seeing the bigger names. QQQM up a point and a half. TQQQ up 5%. TSM was up 3%, which is cool. Avgo, Broadcom, they're up as well. Let's see, AMD was actually up, I know, 2.5 points. Strong in that regard. Oracle, I know, was up. Let's see, Moderna down. I was just trying to look at my big tech ones here. And then Palantir was up a couple of points. Robinhood's up nearly 5%, pretty wild. MicroStrategy 3.5 because Bitcoin's up. Bitcoin's at 96.5, but Nvidia up 4.5. Unity up 3%, so Tesla up about half a point. And Apple was down a point, but I saw SPY was up percent and SoFi up 2.5. Speaking of SoFi, anybody bank on SoFi last week or get out in front of earnings there before it sold off? Or even if it did sell off, did anyone look at the SoFi chart yesterday? It might have been an opportunity there. I might have actually shared it. So look at that here. What I was looking for on that 4 hour with the SoFi chart is see if we could get a bounce right here. That's what I was looking for yesterday. Yes, rejection at that 200, but did we get a bounce here on this 21 SMA? Yeah. Did some call buyers jump back into the stock yesterday after selling off and taking positions and profit? I believe so. Let's look at that real quick, and it'll lead to what I'm going to say. Because I talked about 12:05 yesterday, that bounce that might have been a spot for just like a post earnings gap, just to play. And even though the call premium finished, just in a little movement into the stock towards the end of the day. If we looked at that here, let's see. Let me turn on some extended hour data here. 1281. So see, it popped right back up and sitting right at that 9 EMA. So it might be pushing to go higher. Let that RSI reset a little bit. You never know. The stocks go up, they go down. I know SoFi gets a lot of people triggered, but could have been an opportunity in that regard. Because I talked about it yesterday. Let's see here. Yeah, watching SoFi analyst price upgrades following today's sell-off. See if the 200 SMA holds support, which it did. 13, 14, 15 calls from May 16th. May still be a play as SoFi bounced from the 1205 low. Buy more time if you like the idea. And I wanted to see put sell off and the call premium increase. Manage your own risk because these are just my own trade ideas and do not constitute financial advice. But I kind of liked that 15C for May 16th at $10. I like the bounce spot. I like the risk to reward opportunity because I think actually, see, the stock's at 1282. Those are actually probably up this morning a little bit. Let's see here. I'll pull up my simulator. See at 13 or 14, so yeah, they're up 30 or 40% overnight. So not too bad for a quick bounce, and that's what it's going to be. In and out, in and out, in and out. So, but yeah, this is what I wanted to cover with the GameStop. Take a look at the full O, get y'all dialed back in for the Thursday. It is a new month, a new day, a new morning, and so hopefully you can make the best of it here. But yeah, we'll watch it. We'll see how it goes here. Pretty wild. I'm gonna turn off that extended hour trading data. Yep, just still consolidating, trading within that gap. So, but that weekly, then a lot of people are talking about the weekly MACD cross. You might be right. We'll just see what happens. But it's solid. It's been solid. Lesser volume too. So we'll see. We'll just watch it. That's what we do. We watch that. We watch the option flow. We take a look at news that comes in. We take a look at sentiment and headlines. Take a look at the overall market as well. So yeah, not too bad. Like I said, net premium. Net call premium yesterday 1.32, so about 1.5 for the day. Not too shabby. So we'll have to see how it plays out. But happy Thursday to you. Happy May 1st. Good morning to you. Let's get it cracking. Let's make a few dollars and let's lose less dollars. But I hope you guys do have a great day. And if you watch the video all the way through, you're a legend because you decided to spend some time and learn about some things. And I appreciate you tagging along with me this morning. So why don't you just comment, reply down below, first of the month. I'll know you watched today's video all the way through. Good luck out there today. Let's make some money and have a great day. Take care.